Now.
Yeah, that's right. Our Mike Seidel is live in Osceola, Iowa. Mike, looks like you've got your goggles on and you're prepared for this storm.
You got to have goggles today. The wind already out here blowing at about 20 miles an hour, gusting to 35. And look at the size of these flakes. We must have a little warm air aloft, and we're getting some coalescence, so we've got flakes sticking together. I-35. It's 8 a.m. here in the Midwest. Not a vehicle on the interstate right now. We've seen some traffic, though, but a lot of folks, I think, are throwing the towel in, at least in this part of Iowa, down into northern Missouri. Now, as you get north of Des Moines, you won't have any issues because there's such a tight gradient with the accumulating snowfall that a couple counties north of Des Moines, and you won't see a flake at all up into Minnesota. And likewise, when you get down into Missouri, far enough south, it's too warm right now, and you're going to find rain, certainly south of the I-70 corridor. Speaking of I-70, already our first interstate closure. It's about a 56-mile stretch between Wankeny on the west and Russell on the east. That's central Kansas, mile marker 128 to 184. It's shut down now with good reason. They've had a lot of snow, a lot of blowing snow. Some of the gusts out there have been clocked into close to 50 miles an hour. And that's why we had the blizzard warnings, because the winds will be ramping up in many areas where they're not already gusting to 40, like here in Osceola, south of Des Moines, as the storm heads from southeast Kansas into Missouri and then up just south of Chicago. It's going to wrap up, and the winds are going to intensify, and that's going to blow the snow around. Right now, it's more of a gloppy snow. Temperatures at 31. But as we go through the morning and early afternoon, temperatures are going to fall down into the upper 20s, then the mid-20s. So all bets are off, and when you got winds 40 to 50 miles an hour, that's going to blow the snow around. There's a little traffic out there right now, and obviously they are not doing the speed limit of 70 miles an hour. We've seen one salt truck, but when it's snowing at more than an inch an hour or an inch an hour like it is now, and temperatures are falling and you have this kind of wind, it's really, really hard to maintain the surface of these highways. Here comes one Mack truck, one 18-wheeler, and he's plowing right along. Look at how the snow is blowing off his vehicle underneath and off the roadway from the front tires. He's probably doing about 50 or 55. So everybody is slowing down with good measure. Now, the timing is the cold air gets into the Quad Cities. That's over in the eastern part of the state. That will change the rain over to snow later on this morning, early this afternoon. Davenport, a foot of snow possible, and then later this afternoon and this evening, the changeover kicks in from Milwaukee down towards Chicago, especially in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, which includes O'Hare Airport. If you've got an early flight out of O'Hare through, say, early this afternoon, you should be in pretty good shape, but then all bets are off as we get through the late afternoon and evening hours. We get the changeover. You've got to think about de-icing, and it is a very, very busy airport. Meanwhile, Paul and Jackie, this is where we're going to be, and it may even snow harder, and it is definitely going to blow harder here in southern Iowa over the next 5 to 6 hours.
All right,
Paul?
thanks. That's Mike Seidel live in Osceola, Iowa there in the midst of Winter Storm Bruce now. And take it to Osceola, Iowa, where it's snowing and temperatures are below freezing.
Yeah, Mike's got his goggles on and he is prepared.
Hey guys, and we also have a gentleman who was nice enough to hang out for a couple minutes, Dawson Barber, who was traveling I-35 from Wisconsin to Texas. And what did you decide to do here in Osceola?
It was just real poor driving conditions. We were only going about 20 miles an hour down 35, and we just decided to pull over.
That was it.
Yeah.
Did you see any spinouts?
Oh yeah, no, there was cars in the ditch and
People driving too fast.
yep.
So the plan is to sit tight here and then hit the road tomorrow?
Hopefully, yeah.
And when did it start to get really treacherous? Des Moines or south of Des Moines?
Right around Des Moines, yeah.
Right around Des Moines. So get a good night's sleep, and tomorrow it'll be much better. Yeah. Dawson, really appreciate you standing
no
out here in the cold. What's that?
No problem.
Yeah, no
Thanks.
problem, right.
Have a good one.
You too, you have a good one. Good idea to pull over. So Dawson Barber says they were doing 20 miles an hour, lots of spin outs between Des Moines and here, which is about 45 miles. Let me show you how the weather has changed over the past couple of hours. Take you back to 8 o'clock. I was standing right out here. The snow began a little after 7. About 8 o'clock, we had about an inch on the ground. Now we've been snowing moderate to heavy since then. We've got upwards of 4 to 5 inches. It is hard to measure because of the drifting. You're supposed to put the snow stick in at 3 spots, but you pick 3 spots out here. You can see there's some bare grass. The other thing you have to watch is this, the curb. Be careful with the curbs or you'll end up doing the face plant. Not that that I did one, not yet. But you can see here, you put the stick in, we've got about 2 or 3 inches, but then you come over here and you go down to about 7 to 8 inches. So that's the problem and the nature of the beast when you have this kind of wind and snow. That's Interstate 35 out there, if you can see it. I can barely see it with the naked eye. It's out there in the distance, and right now there is nothing going north and south. The interstate, as far as I know, last check with DOT, is still open. But we do have a longer stretch of Interstate 70 now shut down in the state of Kansas, from Salina through Russell to Waukene. That's 124 miles of I-70 in central Kansas. So that's shut down. Winds out there blowing the snow around, not snowing particularly hard, but again, with the wind continuing to blow the snow back over the roads, the plows are fighting a losing battle. Likewise here, you can plow this and it just blows over again. Temperature right now about 30, so the temperature slowly coming down into the upper 20s this afternoon, late this morning, this afternoon. And that just means the snow has more of a consistency to blow and drift around. The blizzard warning till 9, Paul and Jackie. The snow will end before then, but again, we could have some ground blizzards. Roads will be much, much better tomorrow, so you can do like we've seen 4 or 5 people now, Paul, pull over to the motel, spend the night, hit the road in the morning with the sun coming out, and the roads have been scraped. Paul?
Hey, Mike, talk about the consistency of the snow, because last hour it was kind of that wet stuff. You can actually make snowballs. Has it changed now as the temperature dropped? Is it more that fine powdery snow, which is really easy to blow around in those winds?
Well, let me see. We were making snowballs earlier. I'll take the top part of the snow, and look, yeah, you can see the consistency. I can't even make a snowball. That's the top part. The bottom part is still kind of gloppy. Now, as far as blowing around, you can see how it blows around. We had a couple gusts earlier between shots that were up over 35 miles an hour. And when you get a gust that high, 35, 40, 45, it turns this into a snow globe and a whiteout. You can see maybe about 15, 20 yards. Right now, our visibility at the airport is a 15th of a mile. So you can kind of do the math right there. That's about 750 feet. That's about 2 football fields. Paul?
Wow, Mike Seidel right now from a very snowy and windy Osceola, Iowa. We'll check back with him throughout the morning. And into the meat of the storm, and our meteorologist Mike Seidel is live in Osceola, Iowa this morning. And Mike, the snow is still coming down at times sideways.
Yeah, that's the consistency too. It's gotten drier, it's more powdery. Let me show you what happens. These winds gusting over 30 miles an hour, and you throw it up and you can see what happens. It just blows everywhere. Now we're right off I-35. In the foreground, you can see some traffic. They are crawling. They're northbound towards Des Moines, where it's barely snowing. You get close to Des Moines and you run out of this storm in this band. They're doing about, I'd say about 15 miles an hour. And then on the ramp behind them, I don't even know if you can see it. I can barely see it. We've had some kind of issue with cars getting stuck. We see 2 SUVs and a truck over there. I don't think anybody's hit anybody, but that's backed up traffic on the ramp to get off here at Osceola. Other folks have gotten off here because they've said, we're not dealing with this. It's just too dangerous. It's just too white knuckle. Here comes some tractor trailers. You can see they are just crawling northbound towards Des Moines. But again, once you get about 30 miles north of here, you're out of this. It's not a lake effect band per se, obviously. This is a synoptic scale, large scale storm, but it's kind of like in lake effect, you drive a couple miles and the snow intensity really backs off. We've got at least 6 inches on the ground so far. It's hard to measure because of all the blowing and drifting. We've got a big stretch of I-70 shut down in central Kansas, including the area from Salina to Russell to Waukene. That's about 125 mile stretch there. No word on I-35. Obviously, traffic is still moving, so they have not shut this down, although we've gotten reports from folks pulling in here at the hotel that there are lots of spin-outs because people are driving too fast for these conditions. I mean, basically, either got to go around 10, 15 miles an hour and watch the brakes, or just pull over and wait it out. Now, the snowfall here is going to continue until later this afternoon, winding down, but the winds will still stay up as we go through this evening. That's the blizzard warning until 9 p.m. Notice the visibility has come up a little bit. Looking over here at the fast food restaurants, the KFC, Taco Bell, and the Arby's, we're seeing them a little bit better now, but we're still running at about a quarter-mile visibility, Paul, out here in southern Iowa. Boy, it's howling out here, Paul. And the other thing you have to consider is it's really hard to keep the roads open when you have this kind of wind and this kind of snowfall rate. You know, really, they can try to do their best, but they can't get ahead. They're going to have to wait till this wraps up later this afternoon and this evening to really scrape the roads. By the way, there are lots of secondary roads also closed in this part of the world because they're just impassable with this kind of wind and snow.
So, Mike, this is not your first rodeo. You've been in snowstorms, blizzards, and driving in these types of conditions as well. What's your advice? Would you tell people, hey, to kind of muscle it out, head north by the time you hit to Des Moines, you're okay? Or would you tell them it's just way too dangerous?
Well, they really have to figure that out for themselves. You know, we've talked to people here, and they just said they'd had enough of driving 20 miles an hour, and it was just too nerve-wracking. Now, if you get on the road here and drive, say, 10 or 15 miles an hour, and I'm not sure how many people know that if you get to Des Moines, or just south of Des Moines, you run right out of this. But you got 30 miles, you do 10 miles an hour, that's a 3-hour drive to get up there. You can make it if you have four-wheel drive at this point, but the snow's only getting deeper, the winds are only going to get stronger. So if I were you, I would probably just wait it out until either this evening or tomorrow morning. But folks, you know, it's Thanksgiving. People have to get back home. They have to get back to work, and they're doing the best they can. Hopefully, they'll take it nice and slow and take it easy on the brakes and get where they have to go safely without any spinouts like we've seen out here on 35.
Yeah, and sometimes people just have to get away from family, too, so sometimes I understand. And thanks, it's Mike Seidel there in Osceola, Iowa.
He was out in this storm, and Mike, it's been so difficult where you are in terms of travel, and now they're shutting down the interstate near where you are, too.
Yeah, next to impossible. I saw the same thing you saw on the Iowa DOT Twitter. North of Osceola, not far up the road, the southbound lanes, that would be from screen left to screen right. That's shut down completely because of a crash. So you can't get from Osceola, past Osceola southbound. So if you're coming out of Des Moines, the best thing to do is just sit it out. I know that the first 5 or 10 miles out of Des Moines, it's barely snowing, but then you run into this, and you're going to be in this all the way down into Missouri for quite a while because you can't drive very fast. We're talking to folks that are throwing in the towel. They said, we have had enough of this. We're not dealing with this anymore. And these are people coming back from Thanksgiving, from Minnesota going to Texas, from Colorado going to Minnesota. And we had talked to some guys who were at the Iowa game yesterday, and they're trying to get from here back to Kansas. I-70's closed. Wind is howling. We're trying to show you the ramp over there. We've got a police vehicle at the bottom of the ramp. We think he may be blocking the ramp to keep people from going up it because we have several vehicles up here that are stuck. We don't have the log jam we had earlier with the cars and the trucks. In the foreground is I-35, and there is no traffic going either way at this point, north or southbound, and reports of all the spinouts between here and Des Moines and likely south of here going down to Lamoni and into north central Missouri, also under this blizzard warning. We're under it till 9 o'clock tonight. As far as snowfall deaths, I can get down into this, and boy, we have the powder now. Look at this. I mean, it is just cooled down into the upper 20s, so it's blowing around like crazy. And if I dig it out here, I put the ruler in here, and I'm getting about 8 to 9 inches of snow. That's the best I can get with this kind of drifting, because you can see over here under the tree we've got some bare spots. And then you get over here, and you can see how the wind has produced a bit of a drift here. There's about knee deep. We're not talking 6 or 8 foot drifts, but still a lot of snow out here blowing around. There goes the semi, a Hy-Vee semi from the grocery, heading south. So we'll see how that goes. Again, the blockage is north of here, so from here down, at least as far as we know, it's open. The snow is going to back off late this afternoon. The winds are going to be a problem into this evening. That's why they've extended the blizzard warning through at least 9 o'clock tonight for here. Now, east of here, where it's just beginning to change over towards the Quad Cities, that blizzard warning goes until at least midnight. And guys, as you know, we're concerned about Chicagoland, but that's going to be later. Most of the snow, if not all the snow in Chicago, will fall after sundown. So roads are going to be a mess tonight, and it will be a pretty tricky commute tomorrow morning as the plows have to get out there and scrape and salt and get everything up before the rush hour. Jackie, Okay. Woo. Jackie and Paul, back to you.
Mike, is it my imagination, or have the winds actually increased where you are over the last hour or two?
Yeah, they picked up a little bit. I think the sustained wind's up about 20 to 25. It is a little gustier out here right now than earlier. Fortunately, we're not getting the 60-mile-an-hour gusts we're getting in Kansas, but it's hard to see anything. We're seeing about maybe a quarter of a mile with the naked eye. That traffic you're seeing there in the foreground, those are cars that are northbound in that truck. If you can see them barely, they are crawling north on 35 towards Des Moines. They may know that if they get about another 20 miles off the road, it's not snowing really at all. There's no issues. But just getting there, going 20 more miles, is probably going to take them, as we heard from some of the folks coming out of Des Moines, about 3 hours. That is if the road stays open because of the risk of crashes and spinouts blocking the highway.
Hey, Mike, I know earlier you had that heavy, wet kind of snowball-making snow. Now you have, what, half foot of some light powdery snow. Can you still find that lower level of the juicy snow, or has the wind and the cold air kind of sapped some of the moisture out of that snow as well?
I think it's sapped it, but look at what the wind does. Look at the visibility around the hotel here. This is what I'm talking about. You've got a gust here 30, 35, and it goes down to a whiteout. You can't see anything in front of you, just like that. It's just a matter of a split second. As far as digging down under here, I don't think we're going to find anything. I get down to, remember, this morning when we started at 7 Central, 8 Eastern, we had the green grass. So it's a completely different environment out here, obviously. We get down and get the bottom. Yep, the bottom couple of inches still packable, Paul. So there's your answer. But the top 6 or 7 inches is blown around, as I showed you. I mean, it's just being whipped by this wind. Now I'm looking out here. I don't think I'm seeing 25, 30 yards in front of me past this hotel. This is pretty wicked weather, thus the blizzard warning. We may not officially verify 3 hours, 35-mile-an-hour wind gust, and quarter-mile or less snow or blowing snow, but we're certainly verifying it at times with these wind gusts. Paul, Jackie?
All right, Mike, go back inside and get a little break there and warm up you and your crew. Great work. That's Mike Seidel there in Osceola, Iowa.